Tom Wilson wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the bright yellow notice taped to his apartment door. The words, "Final Eviction Notice," seemed to burn into his eyes. He had 7 days to pay 3 months of back rent or find somewhere else to live. His hands shook as he pulled the paper down and folded it quickly before his 8-year-old daughter Emma could see it. Emma sat in their old 1967 Ford Mustang in the parking lot below, her small face pressed against the passenger window. She was waiting patiently like she always did, never complaining even when things got hard. Tom looked down at her and forced a smile, waving from the balcony. She waved back with both hands, her bright smile making his heart ache. The car beneath her was falling apart. The blue paint had faded and peeled away in large patches, showing the rust underneath. The engine made terrible noises every time he started it, and black smoke came out of the back. The passenger door handle was broken, so Emma had to climb in through the driver's side. The air conditioning had stopped working 2 summers ago, and the radio only picked up one station that played old country music. But it was his car. More importantly, it had been his father's car. Tom remembered the day his father bought it brand new in 1967. Tom was just 5 years old, and his father had saved every penny for 2 years to afford it. His father would spend every Saturday morning washing and polishing it until it shined like a mirror. He would pop the hood and explain every part of the engine to young Tom, teaching him how cars worked and how to take care of them. "A man takes care of his things," his father used to say. "And they take care of him back." When his father died 3 years ago, Tom inherited the Mustang. By then, it was already showing its age, but his father had kept it running through pure determination and love. Tom had tried to do the same, but money was always tight. He could afford gas and basic repairs, but nothing more. Slowly, the car got worse and worse. Now, as Tom walked down the stairs to where Emma waited, he felt like he was letting his father down. He had not taken good care of the car, and it was not taking care of him back. Tom opened the driver's door and climbed in. The seat springs were broken, and he sank down lower than he should have. Emma looked at him with her big brown eyes, the same eyes her mother had. His wife Sarah had died in a car accident when Emma was just 2 years old. Since then, it had been just the two of them against the world. "Did you talk to Mr. Garcia about the rent?" Emma asked. She was smart for her age, maybe too smart. She knew they were having money problems, even though Tom tried to hide it from her. "We talked," Tom said, starting the engine. It took 3 tries before it caught, and when it did, the whole car shook. "How was school today? Did you have fun in art class?" Emma's face brightened. "We made clay animals. I made a horse. Mrs. Peterson said it was really good. She said maybe I could be an artist when I grow up." Tom smiled as he drove slowly through their neighborhood. Emma loved to draw and paint. She was always making pictures for him, usually of the two of them together, sometimes with a woman who looked like Sarah standing beside them. Tom kept every single drawing she made. "That sounds wonderful," he said. "You can be anything you want when you grow up." But even as he said it, Tom worried about Emma's future. How could she become an artist if they did not have enough money for art supplies? How could she become anything if they did not even have a place to live? They drove to the grocery store, where Tom had exactly $37 to spend on food for the week. He pushed the cart while Emma walked beside him, helping him find the cheapest items. She never asked for candy or toys like other kids. She seemed to understand that money was something they did not have much of. As they stood in the checkout line, Tom's phone rang. It was his supervisor from the construction company where he had worked for the past 6 months. "Tom, I'm sorry," the supervisor said. "The project got cancelled. The client ran out of money. I have to let the whole crew go." Tom felt his stomach drop. "When?" he asked. "Today is your last day. I'm really sorry, man. You're a good worker. If something else comes up, I'll call you first." Tom hung up the phone and stared at the groceries in his cart. Without a job, $37 was not going to last very long. And he still owed 3 months of rent. Who was that? Emma asked. Just work stuff, Tom said, not wanting to worry her. Nothing important. That night, after Emma went to bed, Tom sat at their small kitchen table with a notebook and a calculator. He wrote down every bill they owed, every dollar they had, and every possible way to make money. No matter how he added it up, the numbers did not work. They needed at least $2,000 just to catch up on rent, and that did not include food, gas, or any other expenses. Tom looked around their small apartment. It was not much, but it was home. Emma's drawings covered the refrigerator and one whole wall. Her stuffed animals sat on the couch where she had left them. Her backpack hung by the door, ready for school tomorrow. He could not let her lose this. He could not let her become homeless. The next morning, Tom called his sister Lisa, who lived 3 states away. She had always said Emma was welcome to stay with her anytime, but Tom had never wanted to be separated from his daughter. Of course she can come stay with us, Lisa said when Tom explained the situation. She can stay as long as you need. The kids would love to have their cousin here. I hate to ask, Tom said. But I need time to find work and get back on my feet. Tom, family helps family. You know that. When can you bring her? Tom looked at the Mustang parked outside. It would never make the 8-hour drive to Lisa's house. The transmission was slipping badly, and he was afraid it would break down completely on the highway. I'll have to take the train, he said. I'll check the schedule. After he hung up, Tom looked up train tickets online. 2 tickets to Lisa's city would cost $150. He had $37. Tom sat in the driver's seat of the Mustang for a long time that afternoon. He ran his hands over the steering wheel, remembering how his father's hands had held it for so many years. The car smelled like old leather and motor oil, familiar smells that reminded him of Saturday mornings in the garage with his father. I'm sorry, Dad, he whispered to the empty car. I don't have any other choice. He drove to 3 different used car lots, but nobody wanted to buy a car in such bad condition. One dealer offered him $50, but only if Tom paid to have it towed there. Another dealer laughed and told him to take it to the scrapyard. Finally, Tom drove to Murphy's salvage yard on the edge of town. Old Mr. Murphy had been buying junk cars for 30 years. He walked around the Mustang slowly, kicking the tires and opening the hood. Engines shot, Murphy said. Transmissions going. Body's got rust holes. I can give you $200 for the metal. Tom's throat felt tight. $200 for his father's pride and joy. $200 for all those Saturday mornings, all those driving lessons, all those memories. But it was enough for train tickets, with a little left over. Deal, Tom said, his voice barely a whisper. Murphy went into his office to get the paperwork. Tom called Emma at Lisa's friend's house, where she was playing after school. Hey princess, he said. How would you like to take a train ride to see Aunt Lisa? Really? Emma's voice was excited. I've never been on a train before. When? Tomorrow, Tom said. We're going to have an adventure. When Murphy came back with the cash and the title transfer papers, Tom signed everything with a hand that would not stop shaking. Murphy called a tow truck to come get the car. You sure about this? Murphy asked, seeing Tom's face. It's just an old car, but it seems like it means something to you. It means everything to me, Tom said. But my daughter means more. As the tow truck driver hooked chains to the front of the Mustang, Tom felt tears running down his face. He was losing the last connection to his father, the last piece of the life he used to have. But Emma needed him to be strong, and she needed a place to live. The tow truck pulled away with the Mustang bouncing behind it. Tom watched until it disappeared around the corner, taking with it 30 years of memories and the only thing of value he had left in the world. That night, Tom helped Emma pack her clothes in a small suitcase. She was excited about the train ride and seeing her cousins, not understanding that this might be goodbye for a long time. "Will you come visit me?" she asked as Tom tucked her into bed. "As soon as I can," he promised. "And you can call me every day. Will you bring the car when you visit?" Tom's heart broke a little more. "The car isn't working anymore, Princess. But I'll find a way to come see you." As Emma drifted off to sleep, Tom sat beside her bed and watched her peaceful face. Tomorrow, he would put her on a train and send her away, not knowing when he would see her again or if he would ever be able to provide the kind of life she deserved. But he would try. For her, he would keep trying, even if it meant starting over with nothing but hope and $200 in his pocket. 3 days after Tom sold his father's Mustang, Robert Chen drove his silver Mercedes through the gates of Murphy's salvage yard. Robert was 62 years old and had spent the last 40 years building a successful technology company. He was worth more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes, but his real passion was not business anymore. It was classic cars. Robert had been collecting vintage automobiles for 20 years. His garage at home held 37 cars, each one perfectly restored and worth more than most people made in a year. He loved everything about old cars: the smell of leather seats, the sound of powerful engines, the feeling of history in his hands when he held their steering wheels. Today, Robert was looking for parts for a 1965 Mustang he was restoring. Murphy's salvage yard was not the kind of place Robert usually visited. His driver had offered to come with him, but Robert preferred to hunt for car parts alone. It reminded him of when he was young and poor, searching junkyards for pieces to fix his first car. Old Murphy recognized Robert immediately. Everyone in town knew the rich businessman who lived in the big house on the hill. Murphy straightened his dirty shirt and walked over quickly. "Mr. Chen. What brings you to my little yard today?" Murphy asked, trying to sound professional. "I need some original parts for a 1965 Mustang," Robert said, looking around at the rows of broken cars. "Quarter panels, maybe some interior pieces if you have them." Murphy nodded eagerly. "Follow me. I got a few Mustangs back here. Just got one in a couple days ago, matter of fact." They walked through the yard, past rusty trucks and smashed sedans, until they reached the back corner where Murphy kept the older cars. Robert's eyes moved over several vehicles until they stopped on a blue 1967 Mustang that sat apart from the others. Something about the car made Robert pause. Even covered in rust and dirt, even with its faded paint and dented body, there was something different about it. The proportions looked wrong for a regular Mustang. The hood seemed longer, the stance wider. "That one there," Robert said, pointing to the blue car. "When did you get it?" "Few days ago," Murphy said. "Poor guy needed money fast. Nice fellow, had a little girl. Broke my heart to take it from him, but business is business. He only wanted $200 for it." Robert walked closer to the car. His heart began beating faster as he noticed details that most people would miss. The hood had small air vents that were not standard on regular Mustangs. The rear spoiler was different too. Most telling of all were the badges on the sides that read, GT 500. "Can I look under the hood?" Robert asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Sure, Murphy said, lifting the hood. "Engine's shot, though. Not worth fixing." Robert looked at the engine and felt his breath catch in his throat. This was not the engine that should be in a regular GT 500. This was something much more special. The engine block had markings that Robert recognized from his years of collecting. This was a rare racing engine, the kind that Ford only put in a few very special cars. "Do you have the paperwork for this car?" Robert asked. Murphy nodded. "Got the title and everything." "Why? You interested in this old piece of junk?" "I might be," Robert said, walking around the car slowly. "Can I see the title?" While Murphy went to get the paperwork, Robert knelt down and found the VIN number on the dashboard. He wrote it down in his phone, his hands shaking slightly. If he was right about what this car was, Murphy had no idea what he was sitting on. Murphy returned with a folder full of papers. Here's everything. Previous owner was a fellow named Tom Wilson. Seemed like a good man, just down on his luck. Robert took the papers and found Tom's address and phone number on the registration. He made a note of the information while Murphy watched. I'll give you $500 for it, Robert said, not wanting to seem too eager. Murphy's eyes lit up. $500? For that old wreck? You got yourself a deal, Mr. Chen. They shook hands and Murphy promised to have the car ready for pickup the next day. Robert drove home as fast as he legally could, his mind racing with possibilities. In his home office, Robert opened his laptop and accessed a database of classic car VIN numbers that only serious collectors knew about. He typed in the number from the blue Mustang and waited for the results. What appeared on the screen made Robert stand up so fast that his chair fell over backward. The car was not just a GT500. It was one of only 50 prototype Shelby GT500s that Ford had built in 1967 for testing and evaluation. These cars were never supposed to be sold to the public. They were supposed to be destroyed after testing was complete. Somehow, one had escaped and made its way into the hands of a regular customer. Robert spent the next 3 hours researching everything he could about the prototype GT500s. Most had been destroyed as planned. A few had disappeared over the years. Collectors around the world had been searching for them for decades. The last one that had been found sold at auction for $1.2 million, and that was 5 years ago. This car, even in its current terrible condition, was worth at least $1 million to the right buyer. Maybe more. But Robert was not thinking about money. He was thinking about Tom Wilson, the man who had sold his father's car for $200 because he needed train tickets for his daughter. Robert found Tom's address in his computer and looked it up online. The apartment building was in the poorest part of town. Robert drove there that evening and spoke to the landlord, who told him that Tom and his daughter had moved out that morning. They had taken a train somewhere, but the landlord did not know where. Nice man, the landlord said. Always paid his rent on time until his work dried up. Shame to lose good tenants like that. Robert went back home and thought about what to do next. He could simply restore the car and add it to his collection. It would be the crown jewel of his garage, worth more than all his other cars combined. He had bought it legally from Murphy, so it was his now. But something bothered him about the whole situation. Tom Wilson had sold his father's car for almost nothing, not knowing what it was really worth. Robert had built his fortune by working hard, but he had also been lucky. He had been born into a family that could afford to send him to college. He had started his business at the right time, when technology companies were just beginning to boom. Tom Wilson clearly had not been so lucky. Robert spent most of that night walking around his house, thinking. His wife had died 2 years ago, and his children lived far away with families of their own. He had more money than he could ever spend, and he was getting older. What was the point of adding another valuable car to his collection if it meant taking advantage of a man who was struggling to feed his daughter? The next morning, Robert called Murphy and asked if he knew anything else about Tom Wilson. Like I said, he had a little girl, Murphy said. Sweet kid, maybe 8 or 9 years old. He mentioned something about taking a train to see family. Seemed real torn up about selling that car. Robert thanked Murphy and hung up. Then he called his assistant and asked her to find out everything she could about Tom Wilson. She was very good at finding information, and by lunchtime she called back with details. Tom Wilson, 34 years old, construction worker, she said. Widower with one daughter named Emma, age 8. Recently evicted from his apartment for non-payment of rent. Public records show he bought 2 train tickets yesterday morning to travel to Springfield. His sister Lisa Martinez lives there with her family. Robert asked his assistant to find Lisa Martinez's address and phone number in Springfield. Within an hour, he had the information he needed. Robert thought about calling, but decided that this conversation needed to happen in person. He looked at the train schedule and saw that there was a train leaving for Springfield in 3 hours. If Tom and Emma had taken the train yesterday, they would be arriving in Springfield this afternoon. Robert packed a small bag and drove to the train station. He bought a first-class ticket and settled in for the 4-hour journey, thinking about what he would say when he found Tom Wilson. The train pulled into Springfield just as the sun was setting. Robert took a taxi to Lisa Martinez's address, which turned out to be a small house in a working-class neighborhood. There was an old Ford pickup truck in the driveway and toys scattered across the front yard. Robert walked up to the front door and knocked. A woman in her 30s answered, with a young boy hiding behind her legs. "Mrs. Martinez?" Robert asked. "My name is Robert Chen. I'm looking for Tom Wilson. I believe he's your brother." Lisa looked suspicious. "Who wants to know?" "I have something that belongs to him," Robert said. "Something very important." Lisa studied Robert's expensive clothes and kind face. "Tom," she called over her shoulder. "Someone here to see you." Tom appeared in the doorway, looking tired and worried. When he saw Robert, his face showed confusion. "Do I know you?" Tom asked. "No," Robert said. "But I know about your car. The 1967 Mustang you sold to Murphy's salvage yard 3 days ago. I need to talk to you about it." Tom's face went pale. "Is something wrong? Did I not have the right to sell it?" "It was my father's car, but all the paperwork was in order." "There's nothing wrong," Robert said gently. "But there's something about that car that you need to know. Something very important. Can we talk somewhere private?" Lisa looked back and forth between the two men, then stepped aside. "Come in," she said. "Emma, go play with your cousins in the backyard." Robert followed Tom into the small living room. Through the back window, he could see Emma playing happily with 3 other children on a swing set. She looked just like her father, with the same dark hair and serious eyes. "Mr. Wilson," Robert began, sitting down across from Tom. "I bought your car from Murphy yesterday. But before I explain why I'm here, I need you to tell me everything you know about that car. Everything your father told you about it." Tom looked at Robert with confusion and worry written across his face. He rubbed his hands together nervously, the same way he always did when he was anxious. Through the window, he could hear Emma laughing with her cousins in the backyard, and the sound made his heart both happy and sad at the same time. "I don't understand," Tom said slowly. "What could be so important about that old car? It barely ran. The engine was making terrible noises, and the transmission was slipping so badly I was afraid to drive it on the highway." Robert leaned forward in his chair. "Tom, I need you to think carefully. Did your father ever tell you anything special about that car? Anything about where he bought it or why he chose that particular one?" Tom thought back to his childhood, trying to remember conversations with his father from 30 years ago. "He bought it new in 1967, Tom said. I remember that much. He saved for 2 years to afford it. He was so proud of that car. Do you remember where he bought it?" Robert asked gently. "From a Ford dealer in Detroit," Tom said. "But that dealer closed down years ago. My father used to tell stories about how he had to drive 4 hours to get there because the local dealers didn't have what he wanted." Robert nodded. What exactly did he want that the local dealers couldn't provide? Tom closed his eyes, trying to remember. He wanted a GT 500. He said it was the fastest Mustang Ford made. He had seen one at a car show and fallen in love with it. But when he got to the dealer, they told him all the GT 500s were sold out for the year. So how did he end up with one? Robert asked, already knowing the answer but needing Tom to remember. The salesman told him they had one car left, but it wasn't exactly the same as the others. It was a special version that Ford had used for testing. The salesman said it was actually better than the regular GT500S because it had a more powerful engine and other improvements. But it cost the same price as a regular one because Ford wanted to get rid of it. Robert felt his heart racing. This was the confirmation he needed. Did your father ever mention anything else about the car being special? Tom thought harder. He used to say it was one of a kind. He would joke that he had the only car like it in the whole state. I always thought he was just being proud, you know. Like all car guys do. Lisa had been listening from the kitchen doorway. She came into the room and sat down next to her brother. Tom, why is this man asking all these questions? What's going on? Robert looked at both of them. Tom, your father wasn't just being proud. That car really was one of a kind. It was one of only 50 prototype Shelby GT500S that Ford built in 1967. These cars were never supposed to be sold to the public. They were supposed to be destroyed after Ford finished testing them. Tom stared at Robert. What do you mean, destroyed? Ford built 50 of these cars to test new engine designs and performance improvements, Robert explained. When the testing was complete, company policy was to destroy all the prototypes so they couldn't compete with the regular production cars. But somehow, a few of these cars escaped. Some Ford employees hid them or sold them quietly. Your father bought one of these cars without knowing what it really was. Lisa shook her head. That's impossible. If it was so special, why was it falling apart? Why couldn't Tom afford to fix it? Robert smiled sadly. Because your father drove it every day for 30 years, and Tom drove it for 3 more years after that. Most collectors keep cars like this in climate-controlled garages and only drive them a few times a year. Your father treated it like what it was supposed to be, a car. He drove it to work, took family trips in it, taught Tom how to drive in it. He loved it the way cars are meant to be loved. Tom felt tears starting to form in his eyes. Are you saying the car was valuable? Tom, Robert said gently, even in its current condition, that car is worth at least $1 million. The room went completely silent. Lisa gasped and put her hand over her mouth. Tom stared at Robert like he had spoken in a foreign language. That's not possible, Tom whispered. I sold it for $200. Robert reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded check. He handed it to Tom. This is a check for $1 million. It's made out to you. The car legally belongs to me now since I bought it from Murphy, but the money belongs to you. Tom looked at the check with shaking hands. The numbers didn't seem real. $1 million. More money than he had ever imagined having. Enough money to solve every problem he had ever faced. I can't take this, Tom said, trying to hand the check back. You bought the car fair and square. Murphy had the right to sell it to you. Robert pushed the check back toward Tom. Murphy bought a car from you for $200 when it was worth $1 million. That's not fair, even if it was legal. You sold your father's car because you needed money to take care of your daughter. You put her needs above your own feelings. That's what a good father does. Lisa was crying now. Tom, take the money. Emma needs this. You need this. Tom looked out the window where Emma was pushing one of her cousins on a swing. She looked so happy, happier than she had been in months. For the first time in a long time, she looked like a normal 8-year-old girl without any worries. There's something else, Robert said. I've been thinking about this for the past 2 days, ever since I found out about your situation. I need someone to manage my car collection. Someone who understands cars and knows how to take care of them. Someone who learned from his father that cars should be loved, not just owned. Tom looked up from the check. What do you mean? I'm offering you a job, Robert said. I have 37 classic cars, and I'm getting too old to maintain them properly. I need someone to oversee the restoration work, coordinate with mechanics, and make sure each car gets the attention it deserves. The job pays $80,000 a year, plus benefits. Tom's head was spinning. I don't know anything about classic cars. I'm just a construction worker. You know more than you think, Robert said. You know how to work with your hands. You know how to solve problems. Most importantly, you understand that cars have souls. That's something you can't learn in school. Lisa grabbed Tom's arm. Tom, this is a miracle. This is the answer to everything. Robert continued. There's a small house on my property where my groundskeeper used to live. He retired last year, and it's been empty since then. It has 3 bedrooms, a big yard, and it's in the best school district in the state. If you want it, you and Emma can live there. Tom felt like he was dreaming. This morning, he had woken up in his sister's spare bedroom, worried about how he would ever get his daughter back. Tonight, a stranger was offering him more money than he had ever seen, a good job, and a place to live. Why? Tom asked. Why would you do all this for someone you don't even know? Robert was quiet for a moment. I lost my wife 2 years ago. My children live far away, and I don't see them very often. I have more money than I can spend, but I don't have what you have. I don't have someone who loves me the way Emma loves you. I don't have someone who would sell their most precious possession just to take care of me. Robert paused and looked out at Emma playing in the yard. I've been successful in business, but I've never done anything that really mattered. Helping you and Emma, giving you a chance to build a good life together, that matters. That's worth more than any car in my collection. Tom wiped tears from his eyes. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Lisa whispered. Say yes and give Emma the life she deserves. Tom looked at the check again. $1 million. A new job. A new home. A new life for Emma. All because his father had bought a special car 57 years ago and loved it enough to drive it every day. Yes, Tom said. Yes, I accept. Robert smiled, the first genuine smile he had felt in months. Good. We can start whenever you're ready. There's no hurry. They spent the next hour talking about practical details. Robert explained that the house would be furnished and ready whenever Tom and Emma wanted to move in. He gave Tom his business card and his personal phone number. He told Tom about the schools near his property and the garage where the cars were kept. As the evening grew late, Emma came inside with her cousins. Her cheeks were red from playing outside, and her hair was messy from the swing set. Daddy, she said, running to Tom. Aunt Lisa said we might not have to go home tomorrow. Is that true? Tom picked up his daughter and held her tight. Princess, how would you feel about living somewhere new? Somewhere with a big yard and good schools. Emma's eyes lit up. Really? We're going to have our own house again. Our own house, Tom confirmed. And I'm going to have a new job taking care of cars. Special cars that need lots of love and attention. Emma hugged Tom tighter. Like Grandpa's car used to need? Tom felt his throat get tight. Exactly like Grandpa's car. Robert watched the father and daughter together and felt something he hadn't felt since his wife died. He felt like he was part of a family again. 3 weeks later, Tom and Emma moved into the little house on Robert's property. The house was perfect, with Emma's bedroom painted yellow like sunshine and a kitchen big enough for Tom to cook all of Emma's favorite meals. The yard was huge, with old oak trees perfect for climbing and enough space for Emma to run and play. Tom's first day at work was like stepping into a dream. Robert's garage held the most beautiful cars Tom had ever seen. There was a 1963 Ferrari, a 1970 Plymouth Barracuda, a 1969 Camaro Z28, and dozens of others. Each one was perfectly maintained and worth more money than Tom used to make in several years. But the most special car in the collection was Tom's father's 1967 Mustang, now fully restored to its original condition. The paint was a deep blue that seemed to glow under the garage lights. The engine purred like a satisfied cat. The interior looked exactly like it had the day Tom's father bought it in 1967. "It's beautiful," Tom whispered the first time he saw it completed. "It's yours," Robert said. "I mean, it belongs to the collection, but you're the one who should drive it. Your father would want that." Tom ran his hands over the steering wheel, the same steering wheel his father had held for so many years. The car smelled like new leather now instead of old motor oil, but somehow it still felt like home. Emma loved living on Robert's property. Her new school was wonderful, with an art program that let her paint and draw every day. She made new friends quickly, and her teachers said she was one of the brightest students they had ever taught. Most evenings, Robert would join Tom and Emma for dinner at their little house. He became the grandfather Emma had never had, teaching her about cars and telling her stories about his travels around the world. Emma called him Uncle Robert and made him drawings that he hung in his office. On Saturdays, Tom would take Emma for drives in the restored Mustang. They would cruise through the countryside with the windows down, just like Tom used to do with his own father. Emma loved the sound of the engine and the feeling of the wind in her hair. Sometimes, when they were driving together, Tom would think about how much his father would have loved seeing his granddaughter in the car he had cherished for so many years. He knew his father would be proud that the car was being loved and cared for again, that it was bringing joy to another generation of the family. Robert often said that finding Tom and Emma had given his life new purpose. He had spent years collecting cars, but he had never understood what his father meant about cars having souls until he met Tom. Now he knew that cars were not just machines. They were vessels for memories, bridges between generations, and symbols of love that lasted long after the people who owned them were gone. The old Mustang sat in the garage as a reminder that sometimes the most valuable things in life look broken on the outside. Sometimes treasures hide beneath rust and faded paint, just like hope hides beneath difficult circumstances and kindness hides beneath wealth and success. Tom never forgot the lesson his father had taught him about taking care of things so they would take care of you back. But now he understood that the lesson was about more than just cars. It was about taking care of people too, and letting them take care of you when you needed it most. And on warm Saturday afternoons, when Tom and Emma drove through the countryside in the restored Mustang, they carried with them the love of 3 generations and the promise that some things, like family and hope and the purr of a well-tuned engine, never truly die.